Hi, my name is Robert Schmid. I'm Deloitte Digital's Chief IoT Technologist, or also widely known as Mr. IoT. This week on Coffee with Mr. IoT, my co-host Rachel Mohrmann. Rachel, shake your hand. And with Pat Ogawa, who is a partner in our Deloitte Digital practice, and he's a specialist in retail. Today, we are going to talk about RFID and retail technology, and we were also going to have a guest with us today, Larry, but Larry isn't here. So, Pat, what happened?
Good question. So, Larry Arnstein cannot join us this morning because his company, Impinj, which is a partner of ours, just filed their IPO papers yesterday. So he is now in the quiet period, and his attorneys suggested that it's probably not a good idea for him to say anything until the IPO is executed.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you. Why did we tell us a little bit about yourself, Pat? Talk about it. You have a lot of interesting background besides having a great hairdo like me. Well, actually, I have a hairdo like you. But other than that, hey, tell us about you.
So sure, thanks. So I've been back to the firm now about 2 years. Started with the firm after graduate school in Chicago, 92 to 98. Left, did a couple stints with a startup, and before I came back to Deloitte, I ran innovation at Nordstrom for about 4.5 years. Live in Seattle, love the outdoors. Born in Hawaii, still like to surf. Was actually out stand-up paddleboarding this morning. So, and it's lovely out in Seattle.
No rain, huh?
Little known secret, no one wants you to know, it doesn't rain much from June until September.
Okay, I won't tell anybody. Unfortunately, this isn't public, so nobody will know. Rachel?
No, I'm just keeping my mouth shut, Robert. I'm not gonna make fun of you yet. I'll save it for a little bit.
Good. Awesome, awesome. So, Pat, tell us a little bit about. Let's talk about retail and what's been changing. I know we've talked a lot. Tracy Canby was on with us a few weeks ago, and we had a great conversation. I'd love to hear your perspective on retail. What's changing? You said you worked at Nordstrom. How is that how is Amazon impacting you? How is mobile impacting retail? I have my own experiences, but I'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, thanks. It's a great question. I think what everyone's trying to figure out right now within retail, part of it's the Amazon effect, part of it's the mobile effect, is what is a really good shopping experience. And if you've seen the data, we've tracked it now for the last 5 years. The trend in terms of people physically going into stores, in particular malls, is down. Right? I think it was down last year, still around 7%. It's predicted to be down again another 4 or 5%. So we peeled it back and looked at, why is that the case? And I think there's a couple things. So I think there is the Amazon effect, right? That the experience they create in terms of speed and convenience online, Amazon Prime, is a compelling experience. And the second piece is, everyone is mobile, right? We've done the Deloitte Digital Disrupted study now the last 3 years, measuring the impact of mobile. And actually some colleagues of mine, even at Nordstrom, we should just assume that the mobile influence factor is 100%, right? So if the first place you go is there, and the last place or the lowest place you may go is a shopping mall, how do you create a compelling shopping experience? So as a result, at least my take, the folks that are winning are creating very deep, compelling experiences within a category, and they're creating an environment that is fun to shop at.
I have a question. So you mentioned that the mobile experience is disrupting 100%. Is it different between genders or age groups, or is that pretty much synonymous across the entire demographic?
So we actually have it split by category, right? So.
Okay.
So I think categories are split. We also have it split by age demographic, and you would assume, obviously, younger millennials tend to skew higher in terms of index of influence, right? And that is the case. But surprisingly, the data is actually pretty consistent. So, Gen Xers, Gen Y, baby boomers, I mean, if you just sort of walk around and actually look at anyone on the streets, everyone sort of is heads down on their mobile device. But it is different. It is different by category in terms of influence. And again, it's not 100% quite yet, but the speed was interesting. So I think 2 years ago, when we measured the influence of mobile in retail, it was about 33%. Last year, I think the number was 47 or 48%. It was about $1.6 trillion of, at least U.S. Base sales was influenced by mobile.
Wow. And so what is that causing the shift in how conventional brick and mortar stores are changing to become more digital, and specifically with using IoT technologies? Are they picking up and putting IoT stuff in the store? I mean, Tracy talked last or 2 weeks ago about the self-checkout mentality, but are you seeing any other trends?
I think there's two, and I think the wave is sort of stabilized. I think when you first saw the application of IoT and beacons, everyone thought, well, that's an interesting thing. Let me drop a bunch of beacons in the stores, and I can push a notification or a promotion at the point of engagement. I think what the results have been less than positive in terms of the response and the uptake. And then the second piece in terms of RFID pilots, and now we're going back to RFID, which is the little chip that's embedded, that you can embed in all devices. I think we're seeing the biggest potential there, because there is a speed and convenience play in terms of supply chain fulfillment. And from an operations standpoint, the key thing if you're mobile and you're multi-channel now is, how do I sell that very last shirt in a store, and then how do I find it? Because now if you look at retailers like Nordstrom, like Macy's, they're fulfilling a ton of inventory and shipping product from the stores to people's homes. And it's not a simple process to actually find an item in the store when you're looking at racks or in the back rooms of stores.
So Pat, question for you. You said the experience needs to be interesting. I live close to Santa Monica, Third Promenade, and I walk down. It's a really nice kind of place to hang out. There's good food, but there's also great stores. And what I find is some stores are packed with people, and other stores are empty. And I'll use an example, and then I'd let you pick another one. But I always find the Apple stores are just like packed and packed with people. What are they doing right? And maybe you can help also maybe weave in, is there any technology aspect to that? And I'm not talking about the tech they're selling on the floor, right? I know there is a part of experiencing it, but I'm just curious, what is it? And maybe Apple isn't an example you want to use. I'll let you pick another one. But why are some stores so successful and others aren't as?
So good question, and I've actually had the privilege of studying Apple sort of live, and this is when I was at Nordstrom right before we were designing the first mobile POS experience. The place we went to was Apple, right? And this would have been 6 years ago. And it's interesting. So they do a really good job from a design thinking perspective. Right? When they built their first stores, as you may recall, this goes back in terms of history, but Mickey Drexler was on their board, and his take was, in order to launch a retail store, you need to make sure it's executed perfectly, right? So before they actually built it, I think there's two versions. One was built, I think, in a hangar someplace outside of the Bay Area, and they had a fully mocked up environment, right? And that's where they looked at product and placement, look and feel, and that's where they really fine-tune the experience before they actually open the store door. So I think that's one aspect, right, is how do you create an environment using ethnography and design thinking to build the perfect experience. Now, if you go back in
design thinking.
Say that again, Robert?
What is design thinking?
So design thinking, the concept of looking at product and services from a human-centered design approach, right? So you've seen a lot of the early research, early thinking around design thinking came actually out of the Stanford Design School, right? So sort of the link between sort of Stanford, the Bay Area, and it's traditionally now a way that we design product, we design services, and most tech companies will use that approach. And then back to the story, they told us a number of interesting pieces. When they first built some of the technology in the stores, it wasn't perfect. In fact, the first version of their mobile POS experience was not Apple product, right? Because back then, I'm pretty sure it was a Windows CE device, and they were sort of building and experimenting. And guess what? They gave it to the folks that were the youngest, right? So if you're the new junior person, like, well, hey, you got this device, you need to use it. It wasn't until the release of the latest generation of the iPhone was launched, where they created a compelling experience and they gave it to everyone, and they made it super simple. But they learned a bunch in the process, by being first and by experimenting. Another interesting story was in terms of the clean design of the store and the experience. So you never see a cash wrap or a cash register. You don't even see a drawer, right? Everything's actually designed to be sort of simple and elegant, and a lot of product is actually under. You can't really see it. It's actually under the table. So they had printers that actually print upside down, and in some cases, thermal printers don't work really well upside down, so they had to re-engineer that a bit. And then the cash drawers actually pull out under the table. And I think this would have been back about 5 years ago. There was a decision to not actually have cash drawers. They were going to be cashless. And then what happened over time, so they took all the cash drawers out, but I think it took them 9 months to bring it back in, because now older people were bringing thousands of dollars of cash to buy their Macs, and somehow they had to use cash as a form of currency.
Interesting.
So I think,
go ahead, Rachel.
Okay, I was going to say, so Apple was a clear leader in kind of the forefront of what you mentioned as design thinking in the stores. Who's taking the lead now, and is anyone doing anything cool around connected sales? So, I buy something, whether it's a shoe, and you suggest a dress to go with it, or I buy a utensil for the kitchen, and you send me recipes to go cook with it. Kind of bringing the object to my network in a new and meaningful way. Are you seeing any leaders out there in the forefront of this?
Yeah, so a good question as well, and I think the folks that are winning, and I think the other interesting thing within retail, back to the folks that are building compelling experiences by category, those are the folks that I think are winning. So one example would be Warby Parker, right? And if you go to Warby Parker, it was a digital business first, right? I think it started about 5 years ago. Pretty decent experience. If you would you go to the site, you can take your picture, you can kind of virtually try on a pair of lenses, which worked a little bit, but I think their magic sauce was you could pick 5 frames, right? They send them to your house in a box. You can keep them for as long as you want. You try them on, you get them fitted. Then you send them all back. You upload your prescription, and then in about 5 days, you get a very nice pair of lenses for, I think back then it was about $150, as opposed to if you went to one of the big guys, it was 4 or 5x times the cost. So they created an interesting digital-first business, but they found out that with eyeglasses, since all of us obviously have them, there's the look and the fit, but eventually you need to get sort of a human to mold it to your face, right? So an in-store experience is actually pretty important. So they opened the first store in Soho, and I think now they have probably 25 stores, and other than Apple, and if you look at sort of retailers in terms of who's the most successful from a per square foot sales basis, Tesla's actually number 1 now, right? Because I think they're at $7,000 a square foot in a mall. Apple's usually second, Tiffany's third. Warby Parker is actually about 4th, right? So a lot of sales productivity per square foot. But if you look at the experience now, when you go into a store, that same digital experience has been built within the applications that the associates use. So you can still go into a store, take a look at all the frames, they help fit you, they do all the measurements, and in about 2 or 3 minutes, you're done, right? If you have your prescription, you're done. And then it gets sent to you in about 2 days. It's a great experience, and $450 you get a really nice pair of frames, and they have the same model as Tom's. Where they provide glasses to underserved countries as a service. So that's a really good example of a business that was digital first that gets the experience that is now highly physical.
Wow.
So, if you're just joining us, I'm Robert Schmid, Deloitte Digital's Chief IoT Technologist, and you are watching Coffee with Mr. IoT. Today, Rachel Mohrmann and I are talking with Pat Ogawa, a Deloitte principal in Deloitte Consulting, and Deloitte Digital, I should say, and a specialist in retail. Our subject today was originally RFID and how the hangover is over, and we lost our star guest. So actually, we have a new star guest who is Pat, so thank you for joining us. I have to say, I have to giggle when the shoes came back up. It reminded me of how we talked about shoes last time. But I'm glad, Pat, that you talk about glasses. I'm going to go back to what you talked about before. I have a question for you. So RFID, and I don't know, I call it the RFID hangover. There was a while, I mean, RFID has been around, these little chips that you put in products. It's not even a chip, actually. It looks like a piece of paper, right? And they are as big as this, or they can be a little bit bigger. But they've been around for a long time. What happened? Why are they around now? What's new about that?
So good question. So if you go back in history, and this would probably be, I'm going to date myself, I think it was 12, 14, 15 years ago. And a couple of things drove early adoption in the industry. Two really big retail players, so Metro AG out of Germany and Walmart. Right? So Walmart, obviously, with their size and scale, gently asked or mandated that their suppliers RFID enable everything by pallet, right? And the whole idea was now I can track inventory at a pallet level at the source all the way into the stores. And so that experiment sort of ran its course for a long time. And then if you went to Metro AG outside of Dusseldorf in Germany, they created an IoT lab, an RFID lab, where they were enabling at the product level. And again, they were looking at specific store shelf-level experiences, but they were tagging the individual products. And they had a mock-up store that you could go to, a smart card. And then again, this would have been 10 years ago. And they had a lot of technologists, a lot of hardware and software players invest in that space, very early on. I think the tipping point, and this is where about 3 years ago, folks like Impinj, what's driving adoption now? It wasn't the cost of the tag, right? Because the tag now is about 2, 3, 4, 5 cents, which makes it a non-issue in terms of getting it either sewn into a product or on a physical price tag. The inhibitor has always been the cost of the readers, right? So the readers in the ceiling or the handheld scanners to get the data. So now with folks like Impinj, they have a reader that's about the size of a big pizza box. It actually sits above in the ceiling, and it's always on. And so I believe, and the cost keeps driving down, but if you can get the cost per square foot to about 90 cents to $1, you actually now have a very compelling business case, right? So from an upside, if I can tag every single product, it means that if I'm Nike or Nordstrom or Macy's, I can sell the very last piece of apparel, right? Because I now know where it is. And most retailers who've been down the omni path for a long time, there is a safety stock because you don't really know specifically if that shirt is in stock, but now you will know, right? So if you can actually have that very last product sold anywhere and fulfilled anywhere, the business case is in some cases, millions or hundreds of millions of dollars, because now you have the efficiency in terms of supply chain.
Interesting.
So that's like the business case. But what are some of the other business cases that have been proven?
Rachel, something happened. Try again. You were doubling over. There was some voice problem.
I'll try again.
You're back.
Or is it still going? Sorry for that, guys. So that was an easy business case, it seems like. Is there other easy business cases out there where you're seeing this RFID innovation being realized with cost savings to businesses? So, selling the last shirt, obvious a good business case. But are there other uses like data coming from it, driving insights in meaningful ways, or other easy business cases that'll drive retailers to adopt this?
So I think that's the easy one, right? I think the hard one is, and this goes back to creating compelling experiences, right? So being able to serve the customer where he or she wants to be served on their terms, I think is where everyone's trying to head. So there's lots of experimentation, but again, it depends on the brand. It depends upon the user need, right? So if you're a mass if you're a department store and your core customer is really value-based and they are price-sensitive and they want promotions, then there's probably a play in terms of push notification on your mobile device. If your brand affinity is X and you love that brand, then when you walk into a store, and I should know you well as a customer that you do like this brand, if you're close to that brand, I could push you a notification that says, based on your loyalty, based on us knowing you as a customer, here's a customized offer for you for that product. So I think that's an interesting place to play. And then back to your point about the data, right? So now that we have a lot more data about our customers, now that we actually know when they actually show up in our store because they're carrying this, I think that's where you're going to have the combination of a big data set, some elements of machine learning, where I can push to you a customized version of an offer, specifically for Rachel, right? Not for the general population, but specifically for you.
So I have to say I know what that ought to be. This goes back to last time. Today I'm wearing gloves. We shared shoes last time.
I love the Hawaiian logo on the shoe, though. That's a nice.
I'm so glad you recognized this. So last time around, we went around and everybody showed their shoes because we talked a lot about shoes when Tracy was on. That was pretty funny. So we'll see. Rachel was wearing sports shoes last time, like runners.
I'm a Nike guy, so I'm sure mine are.
Look at you. Those are fashionable. I like them.
The old school Jordans, sort of with the elephant print. Right?
You're a West Coast partner when.
I have a question for you, and I'm not sure if this is really retail or if this is product, and if maybe this is just Robert, but I find myself buying stuff. You know how I've always said we want immediate satisfaction, we want product right now, and I find, as much as I dislike it, I see a lot of advertisement on Facebook, and I find myself reacting to it now. And the ones I react the most to are the Indigo and the Kickstarters, where I look at a product and I get excited because they do an amazing job of selling their idea, and then I have to wait for like 6 months. I ordered wireless earplugs and an IoT-enabled meat temperature reader that tells me when my food is cooked. And I love that idea. My partner was laughing at me. She said, this is really ridiculous. But I thought it was a great idea. It fit with IoT. But the thing is, first I have to wait. 2, I don't know when I get it. And yet, I go and buy. And I can't even see the product. So does this go against what we just said about what's different about this? Is this just Robert shopping differently? Is this something you see too? I'd just be curious what you think about it. And by the way, it is my last question because we're running out of time. But I just wanted to end on something a little different and see what you think about going forward retail and how Indigo and Kickstarter makes a difference or not.
Yeah, so I think here's an interesting use case. It's actually one that I worked on, a couple of years ago. And so going back to your example of a product you love, right? And let's say that you liked Nike shoes, because I showed mine. And then actually, if I had Nike shoes, you would know more about me because I've liked it on Facebook and I've talked about it on Twitter. And I'm a sneakers app guy. Being able to consume all that data, and this goes back to the machine learning sort of personalized algorithm for me. And then if I had a pair of Nike sneakers in my locker or my wish list, some of the retailers now are experimenting with when you actually get close to that store, and if the size 10.5 Jordan 11 is actually in stock at that store, I would get a push notification to my device via text message, and I could just say, it would say, hey Pat, the Air Jordan 11s are in, you want to come in and try them on, I'll have them set up for you. I can hit yes, and in some cases the yes is my buy, right? So I can walk in, pick it up, try it on if I want to, actually have it delivered. I think that's the interesting case of where you have a very interesting personalized experience. You have some element of IoT, right, because it's location enabled, and it's highly personalized for me on my terms. So I think if you look at, again, the folks that are going to win are going to combine all those three, right? Highly personalized, relevant to me as a customer in terms of speed and convenience, and they're going to know me really well because now they have a big data set and some elements of analytics and machine learning to create that experience.
Rachel, any closing questions, thoughts before we say
No,
thank you to Pat?
I wanna know when the next pair of shoes is in for me too. But I think that's a very dangerous value proposition. I think I'd be walking in the store and pressing yes every single time and coming out with boxes and boxes. So might not be the best for some of us, but hopefully good for the retail because I know that's who's going to win in this as well. But no, this was a great chat. Thank you so much for bringing a different point of view to our chats on retail, and I appreciate all the insights that you shared today.
Pat, any closing thoughts?
Happy to be a substitute. Sorry, Larry couldn't join us. I think the only closing thoughts are, really focus on the experience. Take a look at, back to Robert, your point about these startups and the folks that are on Kickstarter. The folks that are, looking at a category, going very deep in that category. In some cases, they're startups, they're venture backed. Those are the folks that are actually really, really interested in creating, interesting, compelling experiences that we think are going to stick.
Well, it looks like this coffee break is coming to a close. I want to thank Pat for a great conversation. Thank you. Please join Rachel Mohrmann and me next Friday, 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern, for another Coffee with Mr. IoT. And by the way, if you missed any part of today's conversation, you can watch the episode again on my YouTube channel. And with that, have a good one, guys. Thank you so much. Happy Friday, and have a great weekend. Bye.
Yeah,
Friday. See you guys.